My guest today is Dr. Linnie S. Carter, an educator, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Linnie holds key positions as the Vice President of College Advancement at HACC, Central Pennsylvania's Community College, and Executive Director of the HACC Foundation. She is also the President and CEO of Linnie Carter and Associates, LLC, a consulting firm specializing in public relations, marketing, fundraising, and executive services. In 2011, Linnie co-founded Carter Scholars, Inc., a nonprofit providing financial assistance to students in Virginia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, cities where she and her husband Kevin have lived over the years. Her contributions have earned her numerous accolades, including the Central Penn Business Journal's Women of Influence Award in 2020 and the Bruce E. Cooper Leadership Award in 2016. Linnie earned a Ph.D. in Community College Leadership from Old Dominion University and holds master's and bachelor's degrees in mass communications from Virginia Commonwealth University. CBC, childless by choice, Linnie finds joy in her roles as a bonus mom, grandmother, daughter, sister, godmother, and mentor. Described by one of her mentors as brilliant, bold, and beautiful, Linnie exemplified these qualities and more in our wonderful conversation today. Join me as we explore Dr. Linnie S. Carter's inspiring journey, gaining valuable insights and perspectives from a vast experience. Hi, Linnie. Welcome to Atlanta Diaries. I'm so excited for our conversation.
I am too, Enma. This has been a wonderful opportunity to be with you in community, to meet an amazing woman like you, and to be among the many wonderful women you have talked to on your podcast. So thank you for having me.
You're very gracious and kind. Linnie, I just love your tagline. Entrepreneur, educator, every woman. What inspired this tagline, and tell us more about it?
I was raised to be an amazing woman. My mom was an amazing woman. She passed away in June 2022 from Alzheimer's. And my mom was ahead of her time, and she always encouraged my sister and I. I'm the middle of 3 children. I have an older brother, a younger sister, and my mom always raised us to be outspoken, to not dim our light, and to let our light shine. And so when you hear that all the time as you grow up, you embrace that. So I am an entrepreneur. I started my company, Linnie Carter and Associates, LLC, in 2008. And I provide PR and marketing and leadership development services. And I also provide equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging services. I'm an educator, having worked for 4 community colleges. I love community colleges, and having worked for 2 four-year schools and having 3 degrees. Coming from 2 parents who never earned college degrees, but were brilliant. My dad is still living. He's 86 years old. My mom attended college, but never completed, but knew the value and always pushed me to pursue. When I was growing up, I knew that it was not a matter of if I was going to college, it was which one I was going to. I always knew I was going to college. It was never an option because my parents, like many parents, I'm sure like your parents, Emma, they always wanted me to have a better life than they had for themselves. And then what does it mean to be every woman? I am a woman's woman. I love women. I support other women. I do not like women who target and bully and mistreat other women. And when we talk about misogyny, women can practice misogyny. Some of the biggest haters of women are other women. So when I say I'm every woman, I am an advocate of other women. I don't apologize. I lift them up. I love them up. I coach them. And you've heard the phrase, when you see a woman and her crown is tilted, straighten her crown. Like, help her to shine and thrive, and don't compete with other women because it's just counterproductive. It's a waste of time. So those words mean, and they really encompass who I am, both professionally and personally.
You've set such a beautiful ground for the conversation. Can't wait to chat more, learn more, hear more anecdotes from you. Sorry to hear about your mom. but you've started so much work in creating awareness about Alzheimer's and love to talk about that. But before that, you've done your PhD, and I know it's unusual for a woman of color. So, what inspired you to do your PhD, and what kind of challenges did you encounter, if any?
I, at one point, had thought about pursuing a community college presidency. And one of my mentors, who is currently my boss at HACC, where I work as a vice president, encouraged me to pursue a presidency. But before that, they said you had to get a union card to be a community college presidency. And the union card is a doctorate. And I also knew that a doctorate is the highest possible degree you can get in higher education. I could pretty much write my own ticket, design my own pathway. And the primary reason is I wanted to get a credential that no one could put any roadblock in my way without me dismantling that. Because if I have a PhD, there would be no excuse for a person to deny me opportunities, right? So I did pursue the PhD from Old Dominion University, go Monarchs, and it is in community college leadership. But it was a life-changing experience. I did face quite a bit of racism and misogyny in my undergraduate degree as a teenager. Master's degree, some, not a whole lot, if any. With my PhD, I was treated fairly by my professors. And part of it is I was a vice president, so it would be hard to mistreat a woman with power and authority who has the ears of community college presidents. But I also think it played a role that I was powerful and I could use that power to adversely impact them. So they did not have a choice. But I will tell you that the PhD, and I do recommend women to attain it because unfortunately, not enough women of color have PhDs and other doctorates in our country. In many ways, I'm a unicorn and I don't want to be a unicorn. But it made me a better employee. It opened up so many opportunities for me. And interestingly enough, my mom was sick last year, Imna, and my husband was too. And you know that whenever people of color experience healthcare, we're not treated as well in the health community as white people. Interestingly enough, when I told my husband's healthcare team and my mom's healthcare team that I had a doctorate, and I did tell them, they treated them better. Now, should it matter that I have a PhD? If I had no degree and only had a GED, I'm a human being and deserve to be treated with respect. But in our country where people place value on your humanity based on your credentials, I was treated better when people found out I had a PhD. It was disturbing, and it also gave me a sense of comfort, and it was conflicting. So I advocate for people who don't have a voice, but I will tell you that this PhD has opened up doors for me that I never imagined.
That's a very powerful perspective, actually, Laini. One way to see it is, why do I need to prove myself? And the other way to do it is, I'm getting the advantage. Why don't I leverage it?
Yes.
I love that. So, Laini, what inspired you to launch your career in the space of education?
When I was in high school, I wanted to do something with writing and public speaking. And my high school guidance counselor, who has since passed away, she was wonderful. She said, "Have you ever heard of mass communications?" And I said, "Well, no, what is that?" And she told me what it was. And I said, "I want to try it." So I went to Virginia Commonwealth University, and I love VCU. Great experience. I did, as I mentioned before, I experienced racism and misogyny at VCU. I dealt with it then. I continue to address it, but I had more good times than bad, so I don't hold that against the university. I earned my bachelor's from VCU, and I thought I was going to go and work in a PR firm. My undergrad was in mass communication with a concentration of public relations, and I had the hardest time finding a job. One day, I applied for a job at VCU, my alma mater. I'm like, why not? Doing PR and fundraising for the VCU libraries. Applied for the job and got the interview and got the job. It never occurred to me to work in higher education. I was going for corporate America, and I loved it. And I didn't realize, I was 22 years old, so I didn't read the fine print. I did not realize the job was really PR and fundraising for the VCU libraries. I only saw the PR part. And the fine print said fundraising. So when I went on the interview, the person said, you would be doing fundraising. And I said, oh, I've never done it, but I will learn. Who knew the pathway it would take me on? And I began to love PR and fundraising, and I call them first cousins. So I have worked at 4 community colleges and 2 four-year schools, and I love higher education. And I'm CBC. So CBC is Childless by Choice. And you know how when I was 18 years old, I said, I don't want to have children. My mom said, don't. And I said, I don't want to get married. She's like, don't. Because she was very progressive. I never changed my mind about having children. I love children. I'm very good with them, but never wanted them. But it goes to show you your journey, because the reason I believe that I did not want children is because I have thousands of them as a VP at a community college. And I get to shape our students' lives in ways that I never thought or intended. And so my love for our students and how diverse they are is a direct reflection of being accidentally stumbling across this position at Visa years ago. But I think there's a linkage to me not wanting my own children and being able to really focus on helping other students, other people's children, to achieve their goals. But higher education is so exciting. People think, is it boring? I'm like, not even close. There are days I'm like, this is some Jerry Springer stuff. Rest in peace to Jerry Springer, by the way. But what a wonderful arena and platform to shape lives. That's how I ended up in higher education.
Yeah, I just love your goal and I love your mission. Linnie, I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned a number of times that you went through biases or racism or misogyny. So how do you feel comfortable about sharing some examples with us, and how did you cope with it?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. I am tall, about 5'9" in height, and I am outspoken. I am very comfortable speaking for people who don't feel comfortable speaking out. I don't shy away from controversy. I'm comfortable speaking out against misogyny, racism, homophobia, xenophobia. I think people should be able to live in our country and not be targeted because of their amazing demographics. And I do not think that people who benefit from rights should deny other people's rights. You don't get to marry your spouse and tell 2 men they can't marry each other. Who do you think you are? That's offensive to me. Why do you get to tell someone that they cannot change their gender if that's who they are? It is not hurting you, nor is it your business. You don't get to deny people their rights. And I don't apologize for that. So what that does, it makes me a target, which I embrace, bring it on. When I was younger, my mom told me this. When I was a preteen going into teenager years, she said, Line. She used to call me Line. Only my mom can call me that. Everybody else calls me Line and Dr. Carter. She said, Line, you're going to be targeted when you are older. And I want to prepare you for that. She said, you're tall, you're Black, you're a girl, will be a woman, you're smart, and you're outspoken, and you will have a bullseye on your back. She said, not only will white people target you, but your own people will target you. My mom kept it real with her 3 children, and I love that because she prepared us for real life. I think when you shelter your children, you harm them. So when the real world happens and it comes at them fast, they don't know how to cope. And I think it's also the reason why we have a lot of depression and anxiety in our country, not only because people are mean, but I think in some cases, people did not prepare their children for the hatefulness and the hatred that we see every day in social media, on the media. So unfortunately, as a Black woman, a double minority, I have experienced racism and misogyny my whole life. I can never think of a time I did not. So even in undergrad, I was 17. I turned 18 right before I started the semester as a freshman. And I was in a triple dorm room with 2 white women. And one of them was very quiet and she was homesick. And she would smoke weed, marijuana, all the time, every day. Now, it was not legal. The other one would have sex with her boyfriend while I was in the room. And I was like, this is crazy. I wasn't raised like this. So I went to the one who smoked marijuana. And this is where I had to give her reality check. And I said, you can't smoke your weed in this room, because when they come in here and smell this, they're going to look at the Black girl and think it was me. And I have never in my life used illegal drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. And I said, you got to stop it, or I'm going to turn you in, because I'm going to be perceived as the criminal, because that is America.
Yeah.
And I told her, you will not end my career. Well, she left because she was so homesick. She eventually withdrew from the university. I was glad to see her go. But that was my having to educate two white women about my reality as a Black woman in Richmond, Virginia. And whenever I have gone into professional settings, I can tell when a person is racist because they want to compete with me. Let me tell you the people I don't compete with. I don't compete with my husband. That's dysfunctional. He's my life partner. I don't compete with my siblings. That's dysfunctional. They're literally my siblings. I don't compete with my boss. That's weird. I don't compete with my employees. I'm supposed to be their leader. Why would I see them as competitors? I compete with one person, and you guessed it, Linnie Carter. It's just bizarre to do anything else. Unfortunately, there are two types of leaders I had. The ones who say, she's smart. She can help me to go far. Or she's smart. She's a threat to me. The ones who fall into the second category are usually racist. Because why would you walk into an environment and see a woman who is warm, friendly, and down to earth, and you see her as a threat? And part of it is in their mind, this is where the racism comes in. When you have been taught all your life as a white person that you are superior to Black people and other people of color, when you meet a Black woman with a Ph.D. who is confident and she's brilliant and she's warm and empathetic, you're threatened by her because, one, you were told that women like me did not exist, and two, you're jealous because you want to be me, but you would never admit that. And how does that show up in racism? They target you. I have been in meetings since I've been at my current employer, who I love, and I said an idea in a predominantly white cabinet, and my idea, it was glossed over, and a colleague who sat right beside me said the exact same thing. And people were like, oh my God, what a great idea. And I was livid. Before I could say something, my white male boss, who I adore, said, Linnie just said that exact thing. And it happens all the time. I've also been attacked for defending myself, because racists and white supremacists and bigots expect to be able to do and say whatever they want to people of color and women, and you're not supposed to defend yourself. They literally expect us to take their abuse and not fight back. And I don't believe in turning the other cheek. I've also had people to try to lowball my salary. And I know that people who had less education, less accomplishments, fewer accomplishments, and who were less intelligent were getting paid more money. And I said, I don't think so. I've also had people to try to police my tone. I've also seen people try to mimic me as a Black woman. And I have shut all that stuff down. And I will tell you this, which is really interesting, Emma. Having financial security and no children and a safety net in my husband had allowed me to not worry about getting fired. One of my mentees said, how did you become so confident? How are you so bold? And I said, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? She said, you could be fired. And I said, I never worry about being fired. She said, why not? I said, because I'm brilliant. I'll always make money. I'm resourceful. I said, what would hurt me to my heart is to see these injustices happen to me and others and remain silent. I can't do that. That would eat me away at my being and my soul. So I fight back every single time. And unfortunately, and this may be controversial and I don't care, the biggest detractors, the people who have caused me the most harm, have been white women, more so than white men. And that is absolutely disappointing and unacceptable. And when I talk to other women of color and I say, who have hurt you the most, white men or white women in your life? The majority of them say the same thing, white women. we must do better to support other women, no matter their race.
Laini, I think this will give a lot of confidence to the other woman listening to you, right? That this is a reality and we all have to deal with it. I heard you talk about Dr. Ski.
Yes.
Looks like he's played a very enabling role in your journey thus far.
He's amazing. So Dr. Ski is the president and CEO of HACC, Central Pennsylvania's community college. We are the first and largest and the best community college in Pennsylvania. He hired me in 2012. What's really interesting is we've been at HACC together for 11 years. I'm 52 years old. I don't mind sharing that. He hired me for the first time when I was 34 years old. I was the youngest member of his cabinet and the only person of color. I was a baby. I was a vice president, and it was the same job that I do now. And when I tell you we hit it off, this phenomenal white man who happens to be gay, married to his amazing husband, and I, this 34-year-old Black woman, married to my amazing husband, and we gelled. We totally just clicked and connected. He was an amazing leader. It was his first presidency. And what really impressed me about him as a leader is he loved to learn. He was not egotistical. He was not like, well, I know it all. He said, this is my first presidency. You teach me what I need to know, and I will take it from there. And I taught him because I had already worked for another community college president. He was my second. He was egoless, student focused, and he did not shy away from social issues. And most importantly, he held me accountable. He was able to correct me, coach me, mentor me. He never othered me. He never made me feel less than. He never said, tone it down. He never used race and gender as a weapon to control me. So he left Lord Fairfax Community College. I did too. He went to another presidency on the West Coast, and I went on the job. We always stayed in touch. And then he came to HACC in July 2011. And I and another colleague who worked with him at Lord Fairfax Community College went to his inauguration because we were like, this is our favorite boss. Like, we were there to celebrate him, taking pictures. When I tell people the story, they're like, that's amazing. So there was a position became available, Vice President of College Advancement. And he said, you know, you might be interested in applying for it. And he said, if you apply for it, and he said, you know, and if you do a good job, you will. If you don't, you will not get the job. And I said, similarly, if I interview with you and I get the offer, if I don't like y'all, I won't take the offer. I'm interviewing you too. And he said, absolutely. So there were no promises either way. So I interviewed for the job in January 2012 and got the job and started in March 2012. So I said, I'll give you 3 to 5 years. I've been here 11 years. And I tell people, he's the reason I came to HACC, but I stayed for my team because I fell in love with the college and my team. But let me tell you about him as a leader. He is anti-racist. He is empathetic. He is student-focused. He is transparent. I'm able to give him feedback that I know if other presidents got that feedback, they would fire me. I'm able to say things like, hey, in the meeting today, I didn't agree with you, or what you said was inappropriate. And he's never like, well, I'm your boss. Who do you think you are? He said, thank you for the feedback. I'm going to do better next time. He is not a God. He is not perfect, but he is a remarkable man, human being, and leader. And let me tell you something. I know a lot of community college presidents over the years. I've worked at 4 different community colleges. No one comes close to him as a president. No one.
I want to be the one to share this interview with Dr. Ski and make his day.
Please do. Please do.
Lovely. So many questions are coming to my mind, Linnie. President and CEO of Linnie Carter and Associates, and then the vice president for so many years. How are you navigating so many roles? And what even inspired you to start your own business, given that you had a huge responsibility of one of the largest community colleges in Pennsylvania?
Thank you for that. I did a bucket list years ago in my 30s. And I found it recently. It was mind-blowing. On the bucket list was I wanted to start a company and earn my doctorate before I turned 40. And I did. I always understood the importance of having more than one source of revenue and income. I always tell people, do not put all your eggs in one basket. My maternal grandfather owned his own company. He always had multiple jobs. My mom is one of 7 children. My dad is one of 5. So my mom's dad having to feed 7 children, a Black man, right? So being an entrepreneur was in my blood. And I love the freedom. So whenever I talk to my family and friends and my colleagues, I'm like, I always have a plan B. My personality is to always have a plan B. My company is my plan B. So I am a consultant. And what allows me to juggle it is HACC is my top priority Monday through Friday. My husband and HACC, those are my top priorities Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, my husband, my other family members, and my company are my top priorities. I'm really good about compartmentalizing. So there's never like, oh my God, let me try to squeeze it in. And it works really well. And so I have been doing that approach for years and it works beautifully. You know, I don't have any children. So on the weekends, my time is really mine. And I'm very efficient. I use a lot of checklists and tools. And so people say, how do you juggle things and not drop balls? I use tools to help me to remember. I don't recreate the wheel. And so I am able to produce a lot of work in a shorter period of time, but that's how I do it.
Multitasking, structures, to-do lists, checklists. What about technology? How do you use technology and how important is it to you?
I use calendars, Google, mail, calendar, task. My phone is a godsend. And one thing about me, and this is important for those who want multiple sources of revenue, I do not use HACC resources for my company and vice versa. Everything is completely separate. There can be no conflict of interest. And I pride myself on meeting deadlines for HACC, but also for my company. But I use technology a lot and it works really good. And I keep it simple. So I have found ways to save time because on the weekend, I don't want to be all work. I want to be able to binge watch a TV show with my husband. I want to be able to go for a walk in the park. I want to be able to go, and grab a bite to eat, go shopping with my sister. So having those boundaries and having that free time and segmenting my time works really well. I'm really big on self-care too. It cannot be all work. It has to be play as well. And so I'm able to have my cake and eat it too. And I tell other women, because we're told you can't have a cake and eat it too. Your cake may taste differently. It may be a different flavor from someone else's. You define the type of cake you want, but you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I love that. Linnie, let's shift gears a little bit. So what were your joys as a leader and how did you really think through or grow into your position as vice president of the college?
The biggest source of joy is my team. My current team is phenomenal, high performing, smart. A lot of them are young in their 20s and 30s, and they're creative and they're brilliant and they're student focused. And we talk a lot about social issues. We talk about racism. We talk about things that happen in the world, right? We have 5 campuses. So one of the things that I say to my team is anything that can happen in the world can happen on one of our 5 campuses. So you have to be aware of what's happening in the world, right? If we're looking at TV and a team takes a knee in support of racial justice, our basketball team could take a knee and we're going to support them, right? If a unarmed Hispanic man is gunned down by a police officer in another part of the country, God forbid a member of our security team gunned down one of our students, right? Anything can happen in the world can happen on our campus, and to prepare for that. And they don't shy away from those conversations. They welcome those conversations. I have a predominantly woman team, so I love shaping them. Ironically, many of the women on my team come to me with low self-esteem. and they're brilliant. And I say, you are brilliant. I need to work on with you and your confidence. So one of the things that I say, for example, I'll say, hey, if you go into a meeting with men and they say, hey, we need someone to do the meeting minutes, you don't volunteer. You're not their help. You let one of those men take those minutes. Because what happens, they think that because we are women, we're supposed to do the housekeeping duties. Say, no, I won't. I also tell the women on my team, don't let anyone say, you're being emotional. Calm down. When they do it, you check them and you make me aware. And I tell the men on my team, we will honor you and celebrate you, but you will not terrorize a woman on this team. All of the members of my team are appreciated and valued, but they all know they're held accountable, and we don't apologize for that. And we love to have fun, right? So last week, we got together in person for the first time in 3 years. We had a ball. We had fun activities. We took pictures. We took video. Have you ever heard of the song Wobble? It's a song and a dance. So one of the activities was we did a wobble. One of my executive directors, who's brilliant, she led us into a team of wobbling. Here are these brilliant people with degrees. They're fundraisers. They're admissions counselors. They're marketing professionals. And we're all in there wobbling, having fun, dancing, and laughing. Because you can have fun and you can work hard. You can spread joy. You can laugh. That's why they love working at the college. And they love working with me, and I love working with them. I think I'm a really good leader. They give me that feedback. But I also say, when I'm missing the mark, call me out. And they do call me out. They also are empowered to correct me, right? One of my things that I always do when they correct me is saying, thank you for having my back. I tell them correction is caring. When people correct you, if they care enough to correct you, embrace it. Why would you watch someone fail and not give them that feedback, right? I don't have all the answers. I also put them in positions to lead and shine. If someone says, hey, we want a presentation on this topic, I will go and ask members of my team to do the presentation. I don't have to be the one always speaking. Let them shine, give them a platform. It allows them to have the public speaking experience. I'm that person saying, go, I got your back. You're going to be fantastic. What's interesting, what I'm finding now is members of my team who are not white, who are part of the LGBTQ community, say, we feel safe with you. Members of my team who are of color, they feel safe. The women, they feel safe. And I love that. And I have made my share of mistakes with leadership team. There are some days I was like, Linnie Carter, that was a hot mess, and you know it. You're not going to get it right all the time. But I do get it right most of the time. And that's really the goal. I never aspire to be perfect. I do aspire to be excellent.
How about sharing some of those mistakes, and with the wisdom of hindsight, how would you do them differently?
Yes. So I remember earlier in my career, I had an employee and I couldn't stand her. I didn't like her. She didn't like me. And we were in a meeting one day and she tossed a pencil at me. And I was like, I'm going to get fired today, right? Because it was like, seriously? In hindsight, she didn't like having a Black woman boss. And because I could tell she didn't like me, I didn't like her, I matched her energy. And she pointed out something to me, and she was right. In hindsight, instead of being ugly because she was ugly, I should have written her up and fired her, or I should have said, hey, let's talk. This can't continue. So it was tit for tat, right? And I would not do that now. I would just say, you have to go. And I could have fired her after she tossed the pencil at me, but I didn't because she was young. I wanted to give her a chance, but I knew it because I was Black. So we had a heart-to-heart talk, and we developed a great relationship from that, believe it or not, a really good relationship. Another thing, too, that I struggled with is being patient. I can be impatient. I was in a meeting one day and I was talking to a colleague. I shared an idea and I said, what are your thoughts? And she was thinking, I was like really eager. And finally she said, hey, can I have a couple days to process this? It was an aha moment for me. And I said, absolutely. And I said to her, I said, I'm really sorry. I forgot that we're different. She needed time to process. And because I don't, so by telling me that, I now do this. I'll say, here's an idea. And then in a week, we'll talk about it. And that may happen in a meeting. It may happen through email, but I rarely will ask people to give me a reaction on the spot, because I realize that it's not appropriate, because processing is good for them. And frankly, it's good for me too, because when people come back, they're able to take my idea and make it even better. I've never had issues with mistreating people based on race, gender, whatever, like never. No one can ever say, oh, she treated me differently because I was white. Like, that would be a lie. There's no examples of that. Also, I had to learn that people work at a different pace, and it doesn't mean they're lazy, right? I still think work ethic is important, but just because you're not working these number of hours doesn't mean that you're lazier than someone who works longer hours. I grew out of that mindset. Now I realize that doesn't mean anything. So now I look at the quality of the work and the time spent, not necessarily the hours that you said you worked on a project. So really have grown. And my team and my mentors have helped me to see the error of my ways. So now when I look back at my missteps, I'm a much better leader, and I'm a much more patient leader. And even the other day, I was talking to my boss. Remember, I'm 52. He hired me at 34. So he's seen the transition. And he's like, you come a long way. I'm like, I have come a long way, right? The growth. Because I should not be the same person at 52 that I was at 34. I'm really proud of my journey, and I would never get it all right. That's never the goal. But I'm very comfortable with saying I'm sorry. It's not a sign of weakness. It's really a sign of strength when you tell your team that you're sorry. Because bosses should be apologizing to their teams. That's what good leaders do when you have something to be sorry for.
Sure. That's a gracious leadership style. Linnie, I love the way you said that it's work in progress, right? And there's no fun if you're the same person. So what then is your mantra now versus when you started your journey?
Leaving a legacy, leaving the world better than I found it. I'm not a worrywart. I'm a problem solver, right? So if there's a problem, I'm like, okay, how do I solve it? But what I worry about, which is very unusual for me, is my nieces, my brothers, and my sister have girls. My brother had 5 daughters. Thank you. And my sister had 2. Thank you. So they gave my mom all these granddaughters, right? Who now many of them have children of their own. So I was very grateful. When I think about Black girls and other girls of color, I worry about who's going to protect them. When I get emotional thinking about it, because we live in a country where white women are protected and women of color are often not protected. We are demonized and vilified. And right now, my biggest protectors are other Black women and other women of color. And I worry about when the pioneers and the strong Black women like me are gone, deceased, who's going to be left to protect my nieces? My nieces know that I would die for them. They know I would kill for them to protect them. When I'm no longer here and their parents, who's going to protect them? So I want to do my part while I'm living to make the world a better place so that they will feel protected the way that I deal with my parents, the way that my team feels with me, right? And that's why I tell people, you can't remain silent, especially if you have children, because you're giving people permission to mistreat you and your children. And I want to say things are getting better in terms of race relations and other people who are mistreated and targeted, but our country is on fire. There's hatred everywhere, in every state, in every political party. People are being gunned down in schools, churches, grocery stores. People aren't safe. And there's an increasing number of young people of color who are committing suicide, enema, depression, anxiety. There's a hopelessness that I see with our students at HACC. And I read an article, and it was saying that one of the many reasons why young people feel a sense of hopelessness is because politics, the pandemic, the economy. They can't afford food. There's housing insecurity. Some of them can't find jobs. They have student loans that they'll never pay back in their lifetimes. And you add all of that up, they're saying death, which is why the suicide rate is increasing. Death is more appealing to them than this life. And I want to do my part to eliminate, eradicate, lessen that despair and hopelessness, because our young people, the next generation, they deserve a world and a country of hope. And we're not leaving them much. This country is in shambles. So my mantra now is, Linnie Carter, you need to leave the institution, the country, the world better than you found it, whatever that looks like.
That's so powerful. Any initiatives you'd like to share on where you are at it right now?
Yeah, so initiatives, the best part about my life is that I have mission critical initiatives personally and professionally. So professionally, we are working on an initiative to diversify the police forces in central Pennsylvania and emergency medical technicians. So we have a donor who gave us money to diversify. We have communities where when they look at their law enforcement officers and their healthcare professionals, they don't look like them. So this generous donor gave us money to be able to diversify and hire more Black people for these programs at HACC and hope that they'll graduate from HACC and go into these professions. Also, we just had a graduate of the college give us $200,000 for full ride scholarships, which means that students are going to literally graduate from HACC with no debt, with a whole credential. Do you know how life-changing that will be? And you know that when you see them in 5, 10, 15 years, they're going to change the world. So philanthropy is a way that I'm able to carry out some of my dreams of making things better for the world, for the country, for the state. Personally, my mom passed away from Alzheimer's last year. I mentioned that earlier. And I did not know as much about Alzheimer's as I wish I had known when my mom was diagnosed. So what I learned is Black people are 2 times as likely as white people to get Alzheimer's disease, and women are 2/3 more likely than men to get Alzheimer's disease. So for us, it's a double whammy. I was mourning and grieving because I love my mom. We had a great relationship. And I emailed them and I said, I want to volunteer. Here are my credentials. I was very intentional in my, because I didn't want to waste their time. And I say, if you don't want to do that, I understand, but I don't want to do anything but focus on educating the African-American community about the impact of Alzheimer's on the community. And they emailed back and say, we would love to have you be looking for someone. And it did not hurt that I have a Ph.D. and that I am a good public speaker and that I do PR marketing for a living. And it was beautiful and it was a great experience. So I have been doing a monthly series for the African-American community about Alzheimer's, and it has been life-changing.
Linnie, I'm just curious, is imparting education also part of your role? I mean, I can only imagine you, motivating and inspiring one of those 17,000 students at the college.
I am a mentor to students. We had an event last week on campus, and we invited some of our alumni and some of our donors, and some of our students came back and they loved loving them up. What I have found is at the 4 community colleges I've served at, and I was a professor at an HBCU, an historically Black college and university, and North Carolina, loved it, loved it, loved it. For many of our students, I'm their second mom. I'm their mom on campus, right? They have their moms, taking nothing from their mom, but I'm their mom on the campus. I'm the one who's going to love them up, but give it to them straight. And when I told you earlier that when you're 18 years old and you tell your mom you don't want kids, but then you fast forward to being 52 years old and you're like, it all makes sense now. And I tell my husband this and he agrees. I have room in my heart and my life for other people's children because I did not have my own. And that was my legacy, right? I was not intended to be someone's biological mother because these babies, these young people who gravitate towards me and who I love, I'm their mom on campus. And I really do cherish that. and I honor that. We had a situation where a student was very angry. An administrator dropped the ball and did not respond to an email. And she somehow found my email and she emailed me and said, this person didn't respond to my email. And she was really upset and she deserved to be. And I wrote her back and I said, I'm really sorry. And I made no excuses. I said, I'm sorry, this person should have responded to you. They're usually good about that. They overlooked it. Please give us another chance. And this was probably 2 years ago. We have developed a great relationship. She's a student at HACC. She's an older student. She's in her 30s. She has children. And I adore her. She calls, she texts, she'll say, hey, can we meet? I need advice. And I've never met her in person. This is all virtually. My first introduction to her was a scathing email, ripping us to shreds. But because I listened to her, I did not tone police her, I did not gaslight her. I love her and she loves me and she trusts me. So I am passionate about young people. I'm passionate about students. Remember, we have students who are in their 80s.
Wow.
High school, and we had a student who was 100 years old, and she was taking a history class. A nearby nursing facility would bring her to campus, and she would be in a history class with students, and they would be learning about historic events where she was living at the time. And she loved it, and they loved it. But I am passionate because community college students are so special, Emma. People have very outdated and antiquated and ignorant thoughts about community colleges, thinking that we're second best. And let me tell you something. We have students who've gone to Harvard. We have students who've gone to Yale, Cornell, Columbia, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League schools, and they're brilliant. Our professors, I would put them up against any professor at any four-year school. My team would put most four-year school teams to shame. So I tell people, don't sleep on the community colleges. Don't relegate us, don't minimize us, and our students are brilliant. How many people could go to work, a full-time job, take care of their 2 children, and make a 4.0 GPA at HACC?
Only passion can make them do this.
Exactly. And how can you not admire that resilience and perseverance? So I am passionate and I share that because it's authentic. I love our college, our mission, and the people we serve. And it's really an honor to do it. And it's part of my legacy. People will say, what's your preference? Community colleges or four-year schools? And I'll say without hesitation, community colleges. And they say, why? I say, because the students remind me of myself. First in my family to go to college. My parents didn't have degrees, but they were brilliant. And I tell people, even with my fancy Ph.D., Emma, I don't think I'm better than people who don't have a doctorate. My Ph.D. will not get me into heaven for those who believe in heaven. Your deeds and your character get you into heaven, not a credential.
Linnie, did you ever consider going to community college?
You know, it's funny because my guidance counselor, she never talked to me about community colleges. She talked about going to VCU because it had a great mass communication program. Your question is such a fantastic one. I worked at all 4 community colleges. Every single one, students have told me this, and it breaks my heart repeating it, but this is what I've told it all 4. Dr. Carter, my mom told me I would never amount to anything. Dr. Carter, my 5th grade teacher told me that I was not college material. Dr. Carter, my husband does not support me going back to school. Name it, and I've heard it. Our students come to us with barriers from people they love and trust, telling them, you shouldn't go to college, you shouldn't go to HACC. And then we have people who say, I had a 4.0 GPA. I was valedictorian. And my guidance counselor, because I'm Black, pushed me to go to HACC. And while I love it here, I should have been at University of Pennsylvania. I've seen it. I've seen both. So on the one hand, I know HACC can change lives. And my guidance counselors never mentioned community college. I had never even heard of it. And they're right in my backyard in Virginia, where I grew up. And she was a white woman, and I love her. She was amazing. She said, hey, you like to speak in public and write? Yep, mass communication. She literally said, the best mass comm program in Virginia is VCU. And I was like, great. And I went. So she did it the way it's supposed to be. What do you like to do? Okay, here's some programs, and here's the best one. That is the fair and appropriate way. But telling a Hispanic student with a 4.0 GPA that they should go to HACC when they should be going to Ivy League, and you send a white girl, you told her to go to Ivy League and her GPA was a 3.5. That should not happen. Let's be real clear. That was racism. They should not have been sent out. They should have been sent to go to an Ivy League school. So you love HACC, but you can love HACC and also point out the racism and disparities and the discrimination and the bias.
Yeah. Are there any white people in the community colleges, Linnie?
Oh, yeah.
How do they land up? Because of low scores or?
Well, believe it or not, HACC is an open enrollment community college. Most of them are. So students who do well academically come to us. Students who come to HACC come to us not because they can't go to other schools. They don't want to go and pay a lot of money at a four-year school. We're very economical. They do not want to go to a school where they will be a number, not a name. Our classroom sizes are small, and our faculty know our students appropriately intimately. This is interesting. We have students who are brilliant. They can go anywhere in the world, and they say, I'm not ready to go away for school. I want to stay at home, right? So we say, come to us. Do we have students who did not do well in high school? Sure. But most of our students, that's not their story. It's because money, small class sizes, and they want to stay close to home. So the majority of our students are white, but we're very diverse with Black students, Asian students, Indian students, Hispanic students, very diverse. We love that. And we always say, we want you to feel that HACC is your home. We have students who come to us, top of their class in high school. And people will say, why would you go to HACC? And they'll say, why wouldn't I go to HACC? And we're like, HACC, yeah. That's the answer we want to hear, right? Also, we have people who come to us and they already have degrees, bachelors or masters. They're coming to us for a new career. And we also are very family friendly, which means whether you are 18 or 68, we have flexible scheduling. We're very comfortable with all types of students from different ages. You won't be othered. We won't make you feel like you're out of place because our student population is so diverse. And so that's why you will find a 20-year-old in a classroom with an 80-year-old and they get along and they're besties, right?
They learn the soft skills which they probably won't learn in an Ivy League.
Exactly.
This has been so amazing, Linnie. And before I end the conversation, I cannot not ask you the question about your best friend of over 27 years.
My husband, my boo thing. My husband, who I love with my whole heart. I have been with my husband since I was 18 years old, my freshman year at VCU. And we got married in 1996. When I was 25, turned 26. And let me tell you about my husband. He is married to a bold, beautiful Black woman who has 3 degrees and I'm outspoken. And he does not have a college degree. And he has never been threatened by me. He does not ask me to dim my light. He does not feel inferior. And the reason why is because we have built our life together. He was a owner-operator. He's always made a great living. I went traditional route. I went high school, bachelor's, master's, Ph.D. He went high school and then went to a CDL. My husband has earned more money than people with PhDs because truck drivers, as you know, make very good salaries. And I was talking to someone, and when you first hear the story, people will think, well, she must have made more money. I said, oh, you'd be surprised. Blue collar jobs and careers many times earn more money than white collar jobs and careers. So I tell people, don't assume that a woman with a PhD has made more money than her husband with a CDL, commercial driver's license, who drove trucks. He has always been an excellent provider, but he is my safe landing. He's my safe haven. He gets me. We have a great time. We laugh together. He calls me out on my stuff. I can bounce ideas off of him, and I'll say, am I a good wife? And he'll like, yeah. How can I improve? And he'll be honest with me. He is really my best friend. He makes me laugh every day. He is my favorite person in the world. I love him. There was a study that was done some years ago where they looked at married couples who had more than 2 degrees. They were separated by at least 2 educational levels. And they said the wider the gap, the more likely you are to divorce. So, for example, they said if one spouse has a bachelor's and the other one has a doctorate, they have a higher chance of having a divorce versus someone with a master's and a bachelor's. And we were like, that's great. That's not our story, right? It was very fascinating, but I will tell you, no one cheers for me more than he does. No one loves me more than he does. And I would not be married to a man who is threatened by me. I do not dim my life for anyone. And he loves it. And he tells me, when people say, like, how does this work? He's like, I love strong women. I love that she's strong. He said, I would not want her if she were weak. He doesn't do well with weak women. He loves my strength. He doesn't try to tell me to tone it down. That's crazy to be with a man like that. He's not perfect. There are days I want to like pull my hair out, right? I'm sure he feels the same way about me, but he has my best interest at heart. And when I have a dream, no matter how radical, he's right there to support me.
That's such a sweet relationship. Linnie, it's a difficult question, but feel free to answer or not answer. So do you feel intellectually superior, or do you feel the two of you are intellectually compatible? Because I do believe that a degree is not necessarily testament to how much knowledge you have, right?
I do not. And I'll tell you why. That's a great question. And I love that you asked it because I wish more people had those kind of conversations. I remember some years ago, early in our marriage, he used the wrong word and I corrected him and he was offended. He was pissed. And I think that he felt that I was questioning his intelligence. And I explained to him why I did it. And I said, I would never do anything to minimize you, make you feel less than a man, less than a person. I said, however, I want you to put your best foot forward. And there are environments where we can use slang or other things, but there are some environments where I want you to be more articulate so that you will be taken seriously. And it's not trying to impress white people or whatever, because, you know, I don't use perfect English all the time, and I'm smart and I can use it, but I don't want to sometimes. I will use ain't in a meeting in front of other VPs, right? I clearly know what the correct word is, quote unquote, but I wanted him to understand. And I gave him a scenario and I said, hey, think of a time when you're in an environment and people are making a decision and they're making a decision about your future because they don't think you know better. When I explained it, he understood why, right? So now when I do it, and I probably could have done it a lot better, I'm like, hey, babe, that means so-and-so, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, okay, thank you for that. So I have a better delivery, but he also receives it better. But can I just tell you this? You know, my mom did not have a college degree. She went to college for a year. My mom would say when we were children, you have educated fools. And she would say that there are people who have all these degrees, but they don't have any common sense. She would also say there are people who have degrees and they can't even tie their shoes, right? So my husband is smarter than most people I know, including the ones with advanced degrees. I will be in a work meeting and I will say to myself, how did you get out of high school, much less get into this position at HACC? And I will then talk to my husband and say, hey, so-and-so, what are you like? He'd be like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Part of it is he has a lot of common sense and he's very wise and he's very methodical and he's very empathetic. So he has all of those qualities to make up for not having a degree, right? And one of the things that I tell people, if God said to me, Linnie, you got 2 choices. Give up your common sense or give up your 3 degrees. I'm going to say, take the 3 degrees. I don't want to give up my common sense make up the difference between this and that. So we are equally yoked. I've never felt intellectually superior. There are things that he does effortlessly that I am a hot mess at, and there are things that I'm the bomb.com at and he struggles with. But he is a brilliant man in his own right. When I was a professor at North Carolina A&T State University, a student came to me. She said, I didn't know your husband didn't have a college degree. I said, no, he doesn't. She said, how do you navigate that? And I told her, similar to what I'm telling you, and I said, I don't judge the value of a human being on a college credential. That is superficial. A college credential gives you opportunities to make more money. It gives you exposure to new ideas and people, but so do people who don't have a college degree. It's what you make of it. And I told her, I said, my husband is a great provider. He loves me unconditionally. I said, there are men with master's degrees and doctors who are not good husbands to their wives, and they have advanced degrees. That doctorate that man has does not make him a good husband. He could be a horrible husband and father. You got to look at the whole package and the whole person. So a degree complements who you are, but it does not make up for you having significant deficiencies in your character and your integrity.
Beautifully articulated. Thank you, Linnie. Such a great way to end the conversation. Linnie, like you know, Atlanta Diaries is a place where aspiring women leaders learn and unlearn their definitions of success. Love to know your parting thoughts for these leaders as they transition into larger roles.
Women are amazing. And I know that some of us struggle with imposter syndrome. And I've seen some of the brilliant women you have interviewed on this great podcast. Don't let your detractors get into your head. Use your haters as elevators and motivators. The people who love you matter the most. Other people's opinions, if they don't know you, they don't get to have an opinion about you. Other people's opinions are not your business. Do what's right, not what's popular. And as my boss tells us at HACC, if you want to be liked, get a dog. I think too many times we, as women leaders, we focus on being liked. And when we're not, it hurts us. That should not be the goal. There will be people who will not like you, and you've never done anything to them. They just don't like you. And mostly because they're jealous of you. Find your people who will love you, but hold you accountable. They will love you unconditionally. They will laugh with you. They'll cry with you. Find the people who won't betray you. Leadership can be very lonely, Inma, especially for women. It can be lonely. Who do you trust? Who do you turn to? If I cry, will I be judged? Will people think I can't do the job? All of those are normal feelings. Find your safe haven. For me, it's my sister, my besties, and my husband. Find your safe haven, people who won't betray you, and lean into them. But above all, know this, you are enough. Just as you are enough. And lean into that.
Linnie, thank you very, very much for doing this, and thank you for partnering with me in this journey.
I have enjoyed it so much. Thank you for the opportunity. You are amazing. I want your podcast to go viral because it is such an important work that you're doing. The investment of your time and your talent, and you're beautiful. Your spirit is so beautiful. You're so warm and welcoming, and your smile lights up a room. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with you.
Thank you, Linnie. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, do hang on for just one more minute. I have a request for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Atlanta Diaries on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you follow. Do join us in our mission to empower and inspire by sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It will be great if you can share on the social media platforms you follow, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or any other. Please leave a review or rating on iTunes or Spotify. It really helps us reach a wider audience. Lastly, I wanted to share with you that many of my coaching clients and listeners have created a cheat sheet with their key takeaways from the episodes. I invite you to consider jotting down 1 or 2 key takeaways as you navigate your amazing journey. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you next week for another inspiring journey on Atlanta Diaries.